February 23rd meeting of the Village of St. Bernard will please come to order. This evening, I will entertain a motion at this time to go have a special committee of the whole meeting.
Mr. President,
Mr. Berkey,
make a motion to have a special committee of the whole meeting now.
I'll second that.
a motion by Mr. DeBerkey, second by Mr. Bob Culbertson to suspend with the regular order of business for a special committee of the whole meeting before the council meeting. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Special council meeting is in order, and I believe, Mayor, we'll turn it over to you.
So this evening, you have ordinance number 7 in front of you. We have been working with representatives from the St. Bernard Elmwood Place School District on a cooperative effort to have a school resource officer, or SRO, that would serve in the district. Representatives from both the district and the village have vetted the MOU that is before you this evening, and our goal is, upon approval, to have this position filled for the last 2 months of the current school year. The SRO would serve in the middle and high school building and then would transition in the new building for the next school year. I am asking for your support on ordinance number 7 so that we can move forward with this much needed position. I'd also like to thank Superintendent Dr. Mimi Webb, Treasurer Mr. Nick Hendricks, High School Principal Mr. Brett Bohannon, Board Member Dr. Jason McMullen, and Board President Linda Radke, who worked closely on refining this MOU. This evening, we also are fortunate enough to have Board President Linda Radke here this evening representing the school board. You all have been given copies of the MOU. Again, this cooperative effort working between the school district and, of course, the Village of St. Bernard, having an officer in the building basically for what would be estimated at 180 days of actual instruction. The officer would be compensated at a per diem rate of $445, or not the officer, the village would be compensated for that amount, which would be billed monthly. Again, this has been something that's been under discussion for a period of time, and there's been a lot of thought put in from both parties. So whether or not there's any questions that anyone would have, from me with our work that we've done, or even from Mrs. Radke, she is here and would be glad to answer anything should anyone on council have any questions.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerkey.
reading through there, I see where if there's a snow day, if the weatherman projects snow and they call school off, the officer won't be paid, but from the school, but Chief Simos told me that he'll be working down the station, so he will get paid. My question is, there's I think a 60-day termination agreement in there. It's 60 day notice. What happens if there's an imperfect storm where we get 3 or 4 officers hurt, sick leave, whatever? We're shorthanded. Is there any way we can put it in there? We could call him back to regular duty.
I did not put that in there, and I really don't have an intention of doing so. We do have a second trained individual, so I do believe that if there had to ever get to a point where there had to be split duty or a substitution, that we're putting ourselves into a position where we can still make that work. The goal is to still have a consistent individual in there. I understand what you're saying, and I understand there's always that concern, but that was not something that we felt we needed to add at this point. Our goal is to still continue to make a commitment to the school district to provide an officer during the needed days of instruction. So, I mean, we're making that commitment, and we feel that it is important to make it work basically regardless of whatever situation we're going through. We are actually working on, of course, obviously building the force back to full strength. We've been, started, the interview process so that we can actually develop a eligibility list to fill the current opening that we have, the 1 vacancy, and then the second vacancy that would, of course, be created due to moving an officer into the position of SRO. But one of the nice things that we're actually dealing with right now while we're transitioning into this process is that we are talking about having the position filled for the remaining 2 months of the school year. And in that interim period, we're also obviously going into the summer months. So while we're having this officer that's able to work during those normal days, can continue to work during the day shift and work on training, work on with the school board itself as they transition to the new building, but yet at the same time also add the additional street strength that we would need should there be, any issues during vacation time and whatnot. So this is probably the best possible time that we could actually transition into this. But again, I do respect, your concern on this, but we do need to make a 100% commitment to the district to fill this position. And if we find it necessary to train additional personnel, we will do so. But as of right now, we have 2 fully trained officers to be able to dedicate to this. But there will be a primary SRO, and then, of course, one for right now that could substitute if needed.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
not to belabor the point, I think you misunderstood me. I'm saying if we're short patrolmen, can we pull the SRO out of the school and provide service to the rest of the citizens?
Mr. President, I did not misunderstand you.
Anyone else on council, any questions? All right, at this time, do I have a motion to place ordinance 7 on the table this evening for this evening's council meeting?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
make motion to put order 7 on the table for the council meeting tonight.
A motion by Mr. DeBerke, seconded by Ms. Housefeld to place ordinance 7 on the table tonight. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So ordered. I believe that was it for the committee of the whole.
Yes, Mr. President.
We'll take a short little brief intermission to bring the scouts up to take these guys' seats. So at this time, we invite you to please stand for the prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Our Father, who art in heaven, as a body we congregate in this council chamber for the betterment of our fellow citizens, lead us that we may do all things well. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Present.
Mr. Rickweg?
Here.
Here. Ms. Housefeld? Here. Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Here.
Cindy's absent.
Correct.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Here.
And Mr. Schildmeyer?
Here.
Let the record show that 6 members are present, 1 member is absent. Members of council, what is your pleasure on the reading of the last minutes?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky.
make a motion to dispense with the reading of the last minutes.
I second that.
Motion by Mr. Taberky, seconded by Mr. Ray Culbertson to dispense with the reading of the last minutes. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. The minutes will stand as submitted. All right, we'll move to reports of city officials. Mayor, Mr. Stuchel.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening, we're blessed to have scouts from Troop 354 with us here this evening. Tonight, we have Mr. Quincy Beringhouse, Mr. Bryce Jewell, Mr. Ben Radicke, Mr. Cooper Steele, and Mr. Dominic Stratman. So at the conclusion of this evening, tonight's meeting, I had already kind of told you this, that I know you were disappointed that we will not be having cookies and punch. But in lieu of that, we will be scheduling a trip to Dairy Queen after one of your regularly scheduled scout meetings. So thank you again for being here this evening, and thank you for all of your service to our community. This evening, we, of course, have two ordinances that I take special interest in. First, ordinance number 4, which vacates the easement that the village has for the parking lot next to St. Bernard Pub. I am asking for your support on the release of the easement so that the owners of this property can have full use of the lot for their patrons. And of course, ordinance number 7, which we had already discussed. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I hope council's invited to Dairy Queen as well.
Mr. President, we can make, we can work on that. And we would expect full participation.
I think I could do that. Auditor, Ms. Brickway.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before council tonight is ordinance number 6, 2023. The first part of the additional appropriation of $3,600 to community events. That is what we spoke about at the committee of the whole regarding the grant that we went out for the smaller stage. The other additional appropriation into 2K7 computers for $14,500 is as follows. As I stated in the past, I have been researching a new online PO software for the village. After researching, I believe the best fit for us is to add a module to the current buck system we use. This will allow all POs to be done online with the department heads entering the PO information, and a notification email will be sent to me. After my approval, the department will receive another notification email to go ahead with their purchase. When the invoice comes in, they can scan the invoice and email it back to me. This will eliminate the current custom printed 4-part carbon paper POs we use. It will also allow the auditor's office to be able to keep the PO and invoice information on the computer instead of printing everything. The best part is the department heads will have the ability to use the system to look up balances, create POs, use the chart of accounts, etc. They will have the most up-to-date financial information at their fingertips. I talked to the department heads and provided them examples of the software, and they are in favor of this and excited to be able to access the financial information of their line items and vendors. The cost for the startup and adding users for the department heads is $14,500, with a support and updates cost of $2,400 a year. I am asking council for the approval to add the additional appropriation to this ordinance. This will allow time to get the software set up and time for the department heads to learn it. I would like to officially start using it April 1st. It would be the beginning of the second quarter, which I believe is the best time to start. I believe we need to continue moving forward using the internet for work without printing everything and for storage of documents. This brings the auditor department another step closer to going paperless and streamline another procedure. It also, the other issue we're having is we don't have anybody that can print the carbon copy POs anymore. The company that did them went out of business. So it's time that we need to move on because we're on our last pack of POs. If anybody has any questions. Okay, thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Director Law, Ms. Van Valkenburg.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would join the mayor in asking you to pass ordinance number 4, dealing with the execution of the vacation of parking easement across the, what is the miners parking lot, or what is referred to as historically as the miners parking lot. And you should have, I handed out, in case you did not have it attached, a copy of the vacation of the easement as well as the release of claims that is to be executed by the property owner. Thank you.
Thank you. Treasurer, Mr. Ungrue.
Thank you, Mr. President. The First State Bank balance at the end of January totaled $5,669.68, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Safety and Service Director, Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, Council. How's everyone? We have progress to report. The recycle bins are in our possession. Trash bags are on their way. We are, however, still waiting on the larger recycled dumper cans. I have met with all companies for the painting, blacktopping, and roofing of the pavilion. Pool fencing has started. It's in its final stages. I will be finalizing bids for council chambers and main hall renovation. I should have a report by next committee of the whole meeting. The village has volunteered to help UC and Ohio Department of Energy fund its study, of which involves characterizing and sorting trash into various usable byproducts. Our part in the study is to randomly pick 10 bags of trash throughout the village once a week. Then UC will put it on their separator to advance the separation of trash. That will probably carry on for a couple years. To my community, sometimes I think village life can compare to living life. We have detours in the village, and certainly life has its alternate routes. The road of life isn't always smooth, and our place of residence sure has potholes. We try to keep things directional and in an orderly manner for the village to remain peaceful. Life is not any different. Things should be in a spiritual and emotional direction to keep yourself at peace. Chances are you will let a mishap push your irritator button. This is where they differ. One setting, you can ask the operator to connect you to an appropriate number. In life, you have to ask the universe to direct the call to your heart, not to your mind. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Tax Administrator, Ms. Helms.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to go over some quick tax department reminders because we are in the tax season right now. So for 2022, your federal, state, and local, which is your St. Bernard tax return, are all due on April 18th, 2023. The St. Bernard e-file portal is up and running. PINs have been cleared, so every taxpayer will have to set their PIN or reset it. Taxpayers have the ability to reset their own PINs now, so you don't have to call me to reset it. You can reset it through the website. Taxpayers must submit their email address on the e-file site to have the ability to reset their PIN. All tax returns, either filed electronically or by paper, must include W-2s or 1099s if you have them, Federal 1040 page 1 and 2, and any federal schedules. E-file users can attach these to the e-file or submit them by paper, drop them in the mail or put them in our Dropbox. Your tax return cannot be audited and processed without this documentation. Paper tax form submissions must have printed documentation. All paper tax returns must be completed, signed, and dated. Incomplete forms will not be accepted. Paper tax forms with instructions are available in the tax office, or printable versions are available on the village tax website. Please, and I emphasize this, please do not email tax documents or credit card information to my email, as our city email is not encrypted. The e-file portal and payment site are encrypted. If you owe $200 or more from a previous tax balance, you're required by law to pay estimated taxes quarterly. This is a message for the retirees who have an exemption from me. You do not have to file unless you have winnings of $500 or more from gambling or the lottery, you have income outside retirement, Social Security, etc., such as rental property, business income, or have gone back to work. As always, you can give me a call at 242-7710. That concludes my report.
Thank you. We'll move to reports of standing committees. Finance, Mr. Taberky.
No report.
Thank you. Safety, Mr. Brickwig.
Thank you, Mr. President. As chairman of the safety committee, I assisted with the interview of 10 police officer candidates last night, along with some of the amenities. The interviews went well, and we hope to announce the hiring soon. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Service, Ms. Hausfeld.
Thank you, Mr. President. My scout tonight is Cooper Steele. He is in 8th grade at St. Bernard Middle School and enjoys reading. He is in Scout Troop 354. He enjoys playing sports, especially soccer. He is giving the service department report tonight. Here's Cooper.
This is the service department report for January 2023. We have 22 trucks placed at residencies, 16 dumpsters placed at residencies, 99 special pickups at residencies, 135.98 tons of garbage taken to the landfill, and 7 30-yard roll-off dumpsters. And we have 23.85 tons of recycling material and 3,500 pounds of scrap metal. and 1 30-yard waste roll-off. And for the month of December 2022, the village has remitted $25,681.27 for a trash fee.
Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes our report.
Thank you. Public improvements, Mr. Bob Culbertson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next CIC meeting will be this Tuesday at 6 p.m. in council chambers. CIC is still accepting applications for grass cutting. All applications are due by Monday at 5 p.m. Please turn them in at City Hall.
Thank you. Marketing, Mr. Ray Culbertson.
Thanks, Mr. President. Given in marketing report tonight is Bryce Jewell. Bryce is a junior at St. Bernard Elmwood Place High School. He enjoys playing in the pep band and being part of the Stingray swim team.
Thank you, Mr. President. The German Luau Committee meets on the first and third Tuesday of each month at 6 p.m. in Centennial Hall. Our next meeting is March 7th, and all are welcome to attend. We will once again be looking for community partners to operate booths at the luau and share in the profits, and we expect to publish this year's guidelines and application by early April. The St. Bernard Garden Club is hosting its next monthly meeting on Tuesday, March 14th at 6 p.m. in Centennial Hall. Everyone is welcome to attend and build your own self-watering container for your home. All materials and instructions are supplied, and you'll leave that night with your completed container. The cost is $10 per person, and spots are limited, so pre-registration is strongly encouraged. Visit stbernardgardenclub.org or their Facebook page for more information. Finally, don't forget that Dairy Queen opens on March 1st. It's like St. Bernard's own holiday. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Business and industry, Mr. Schultmeyer.
Thanks, Mr. President. I'd like to introduce Quincy Beringhouse. He's an 8th grader at St. Clement, and he has achieved the rank of tenderfoot in Troop 354.
A quick update regarding a representative for economic development in the village, Alloy Development Company. Alloy has hit the ground running and are in the process of contacting the existing companies currently operating in St. Bernard in an effort to understand their needs and plans for the future. In addition, Catherine Fitzgerald, our representative from Alloy, has begun to reach out to businesses that potentially might consider a future move in St. Bernard. This would include putting effort into helping to find a potential candidate or buyer for the Chili Time building. Nothing 100% solid to report on that front yet, but progress is being made. The village can expect to see increasing results from Alloy as the year progresses. Lastly, with the BASF, the team continues to hold as the tax abatement process is completed with the Hamilton County Commissioners. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Committee of the Whole, Ms. Stegman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Minutes were submitted Wednesday, February 22nd, and I have no communications this evening.
Thank you. At this time, Clerk, could you please give Special Resolution 1, 2023? Could you please read that in its entirety?
Special Resolution Number 1, 2023, declaring the Outdoor Code of St. Bernard, designating all Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts in the community honorary park policemen, and asking all of the young men and young ladies of St. Bernard to honor this code. Whereas the Boy Scout and Cub Scout programs encourage community betterment as well as individual member improvement, and whereas Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts are special citizens who knows their duty to follow to their fellow men and will face opposition to do what they know is right, and whereas St. Bernard youth is interested in a better St. Bernard of the future, now therefore be it resolved by the Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts of the Village of St. Bernard, State of Ohio, is a unanimous vote of the members voting. Section 1, I will treat the outdoors as a heritage to be improved for our greater enjoyment. I will keep my trash and garbage out of America's waters, fields, woods, and roadways. Section 2, I will prevent wildfire. I will build my fire in a safe place and be sure it is out before I leave. Section 3, I will treat public and private property with respect. I will remember the use of the outdoors is a privilege I can lose by abuse. Section 4, I will learn how to practice good conservation of soil, waters, forests, minerals, grasslands, and wildlife, and I will urge others to do the same. I will use sportsmanlike methods in all my outdoor activities. Section 5, I will observe bicycle safety rules and obey all traffic laws when operating my bicycle or walking through the streets of St. Bernard.
Members of council, you have heard the reading of Special Resolution Number 1, 2023. What is your pleasure?
I make a motion to adopt Resolution 1, 2023.
I second that.
A motion by Ms. Hausfeld, Ms. Hausfeld's representative, and second by Mr. Bob Culbertson, to adopt Special Resolution Number 1, 2023. Clerk, will you please call the roll on adoption?
Mr. Brickweg?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Taberky.
Aye.
Mr. Brickweg?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer?
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays. Motion carries. Special Resolution Number 1, 2023 is adopted as read. At this time, I believe the mayor has some goodies for our young scouts this evening. Could we please give them a round of applause?
This evening, we'd like to present certificates and St. Bernard pins to our scouts that are here with us tonight. First, we'd be honoring Mr. Quincy Beringhouse, if you'd please come up. Next, Mr. Bryce Jewell. Next, Mr. Ben Radicke. Next, Mr. Cooper Steele. And lastly, Mr. Dominic Stratman. And I want to apologize to Scoutmaster, Mr. Craig Beringhouse. I think we owe him a big round of applause for everything he does for his troop. And on, of course, our Dairy Queen night, I promise we'll make up the lack of the certificate and pin with a large blizzard, if that will do.
We thank you, young scouts, for your service. You are definitely free to go and don't have to stay around for this boring part of the meeting. You're more than welcome to stay, but feel free to exit if needed. All right. I'll wait till we get all settled here. All right, clerk, could you please give the first reading of ordinance number 4, 2023?
Ordinance number 4, 2023, an ordinance directing the mayor to execute a vacation of parking easement across private property and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 4, 2023. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky?
make a motion to dispense with the second and third reading of ordinance 4, 2023.
Second that.
A motion by Mr. Taberky, second by Mr. Ray Culbertson to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 4, 2023. Are there any remarks? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 4? If not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
President,
Mr. Taberky?
make a motion to adopt ordinance 4, 2023.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Mr. Taberky, second by Ms. Hausfeld to adopt ordinance number 4, 2023. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 4, 2023 is adopted as read. Clerk, will you please give the first reading of ordinance 5, 2023?
Ordinance number 5, 2023, an ordinance approving the editing and inclusion of certain ordinances as part of the various component codes of the codified ordinances of St. Bernard, Ohio, revising the traffic and general offenses codes to comply with state law and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 5, 2023. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky?
make a motion to dispense with the second and third readings, ordinance 5, 2023.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Motion by Mr. Taberky, second by Ms. Hausfeld to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 5, 2023. Are there any remarks?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky?
this may be kind of a stupid question, but since there, in section 2, there's no traffic codes, no general offenses codes that have been changed, why do we have to pass this ordinance?
I don't have a good answer for you other than the fact
Ally?
that,
It says in section 1, to refer to section 2, that things have been changed, and section 2 says nothing's been changed. So why are we updating if nothing's been changed?
That's a very good question.
if I could interject, I know that the village clerk, I know Ms. Culbertson had requested and I don't know if it's a time issue that every so often.
They do
To
do
keep
it
them
every so
current?
often because they do update the additions pretty much yearly. So that's probably why it was. It may just be pro forma. I'm not aware specifically. Heidi didn't bring anything specific to my attention that she felt needed to be addressed. So I think it may be just pro forma.
Mr. President,
Mayor.
this is, I believe, an annual deal so that when there's updates with ORC, anything with the traffic code, so that we stay in tune with that, and so that, again, the fee schedules and all of that. So I thought we've always followed this, and this has just been normal course of business.
Right.
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky?
it's been normal source of business every 3 months. But this is the first time I've ever noticed is none at this time. But just curious.
Any other remarks? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 5? If not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky?
make a motion to adopt ordinance 5, 2023.
Second that.
Motion by Mr. Taberky, second by Mr. Ray Culbertson to adopt ordinance number 5, 2023. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 5, 2023 is adopted as read. Clerk, will you please give the first reading of ordinance number 6, 2023?
Ordinance number 6, 2023, authorizing and directing the auditor to provide additional appropriations and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 6, 2023. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky?
make a motion to dispense with second and third reading of ordinance 6, 2023.
Second that, Mr. President.
Motion by Mr. Taberky, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance 6, 2023. Are there any remarks? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 6? If not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky?
make a motion to adopt ordinance 6, 2023.
Second that.
Excuse me. A motion by Mr. DeBerke, second by Mr. Ray Culbertson to adopt ordinance number 6, 2023. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld? Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays. Motion carries. Ordinance number 6, 2023 is adopted as read. Clerk, will you please give the first reading of ordinance number 7, 2023?
Ordinance number 7, 2023, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract MOU with the St. Bernard Elmwood Place School District for Village of St. Bernard Police Department to provide a school resource officer, SRO, and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 7, 2023. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke?
make a motion to dispense with the second and third reading of ordinance 7, 2023.
A motion by Mr. DeBerke, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 7, 2023. Are there any remarks? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council on ordinance 7? If not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays. Motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke?
make a motion to adopt ordinance 6,
7.
2023.
Second it.
A motion by Mr. DeBerke, seconded by Mr. Ray Culbertson to adopt ordinance number 7, 2023. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mr. Bob Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
And Mr. Schildmeyer.
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays. Motion carries. Ordinance number 7, 2023 is adopted as read. At this time, does anyone in council have anything under old business? Not, does anyone in council have anything under new business?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke?
the next block watch meeting will be Thursday, March 16th at 6:30 in the Safety Center. Topic for the meeting will be CPR and AED training. I'm also working on an e-waste recycling event in the spring. If anyone would like to help me sponsor the event, they can call me at 543-6801. Concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Anyone else under new business? If not, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address council this evening? If not, what is council's pleasure on the excuse of the absent member?
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke?
make a motion to excuse the absent member.
I'll second it.
Motion by Mr. DeBerke, seconded by Mr. Ray Culbertson to excuse the absent member. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. The next committee of the whole will be Thursday, March 9th at 7 p.m. This time I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson.
make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Motion by Mr. Ray Culbertson, second by Ms. Hausfeld to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.